everybody. Welcome into the shadows of Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, Alabama for our Kroger Kickoff. My name is Brandon Adams, and Dog Nation certainly looking forward to the big game tonight between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Alabama Crimson Tide. And over the course of the next couple of minutes, we will provide you all the pregame coverage, all of it brought to you by Kroger. I can tell you that the Georgia team itself has been here at Bryant-Denny Stadium for approximately 15 minutes. They arrived at the stadium really just a few minutes ago, a little bit later than a typical arrival, although also a little bit more difficult circumference of streets to navigate, narrow lanes surrounding Bryant-Denny Stadium, but they finally made their way through. The Georgia team getting off the buses. You'll see some of that video as we broadcast here from Tuscaloosa here this evening as the team shows up. Kirby Smart, of course, leading the way as per usual. Stetson Bennett with his game face on, and the rest of the Georgia team filing out of a number of buses to head inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. For the first time since 2007, Georgia will play a game here. Of course, the Dogs have won their last two in Tuscaloosa, but both of those games certainly a long time ago. The 2002 game in just the second year for Georgia coach Mark Richt. The 2007 game, the first year, believe it or not, for Alabama coach Nick Saban. These teams have met since then, but they've all been in the state of Georgia. They have not been where they'll play today here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Obviously, we'll take a lot of your comments here, part of our Kroger Kickoff, and we'll get some big news going up as well as we are with you all evening long getting ready for the game. Let me also remind you, speaking of big news for you to remember is that the Kroger Ultimate Fan Contest, courtesy of Dog Nation, is ongoing at DogNation.com. You'll get a chance to sign up for your chance to win and be recognized as Dog Nation's Ultimate Fan. You can win a $500 gift card for Kroger, and you can also win one of these Kroger masks. And I tell you, we've been popular folks thus far around the city of Tuscaloosa over the last couple of days, giving out some of these Dog Nation masks, looking back on some of the great memories of the Kirby Smart era. Yeah, how about this one? Dogs on top, Georgia taking down Florida once again, signifying the 3-year winning streak for Kirby Smart against the Florida Gators. We've got a mask that honors that. We've been giving away a lot of these, and really the entire series of Dog Nation masks. So if you see us in Tuscaloosa, please come by and let me give you one of those. I'd love to do it. Or if you want a simple way that you can win a Kroger Dog Nation mask, just go to DogNation.com, register for your chance to be recognized as Kroger's Ultimate Fan, and you could be a big winner there on that. I'll also say that the discussion in and around Tuscaloosa over the course of really the early morning hours has been the fact that Alabama coach Nick Saban, after on Wednesday it was reported that he had tested positive for the coronavirus, apparently a series of negative tests, as you know by now, has cleared him for tonight's game. And there's a lot of questions about Georgia fans of, wait a second, how could this happen so quickly? I think the good thing to remember here from a Georgia standpoint is when you hear Georgia wide receiver Kearis Jackson talk earlier in the week, there was really not a whole lot of concern about Saban one way or another. If anything, it's been Alabama this week who seems, at least from my perspective, to have been caught up in the potential distraction of would Saban coach, would he not? When Georgia players have had a chance to speak on this subject, they have taken a far more business-like tone. It doesn't seem like they're all that impacted by this one way or another, at least in a couple of accounts. Kearis Jackson and Kenny McIntosh, they spoke to that point directly. The other big news that's out there as of right now is the scheduling change that went on last night with the coronavirus outbreak ongoing at Florida, a need to find a way for the Gators to kind of stay on a similar schedule to Georgia, and also find a way for certain teams to get just a game back in again. Next week's game for Georgia, which was supposed to take place at Kentucky, has now been shifted to the following week. Georgia was not slated to play on Halloween. It will now play the Wildcats there on Halloween afternoon in Lexington. That means the bye week next week, so Georgia will play a game before it takes on Florida on the date that was originally scheduled for, at least originally once the SEC modified its schedule back in the summer, on November 7th. This is one of those things we'll talk about a lot this week on Dog Nation Daily. I think for some Georgia fans, there's a little bit of an issue of, well, is this Georgia, from a scheduling standpoint, accommodating one of its rivals again? A lot of Georgia fans kind of remember some of the things that have gone on with Auburn in recent years. For me, I take a little bit different tack. For one thing, you have to take Florida at its word that it's dealing with a coronavirus outbreak right now, and doing something to allow them to play again, I think, is the appropriate response. And also, and I'll get more into this during the week on Dog Nation Daily, the week after playing Alabama, getting ready to play what has turned out to be a pretty physical Kentucky team, I don't think that week off for Georgia is necessarily going to come at a bad time. Obviously, Georgia fans like the idea of having the week off before Florida. Florida fans like the idea of having the week off before Georgia. Both those schools won't have that this year, but when it's all said and done, I think the bye week for Georgia actually may not come at a bad time. So those are the two big pieces of news that are out there. the current status of Nick Saban, he is clear to coach in tonight's game. The status of Georgia's schedule, different over the course of the next couple of weeks than it was originally supposed to be. Off week next Saturday after playing the Crimson Tide tonight. And then after that, of course, Georgia will play at Kentucky next Saturday. Also, as we're taking some of your comments here, one of the things you'll see is some of the sights and sounds around Bryant-Denny Stadium, the beautiful collection of statues and monuments they have to honor great coaches who've won national champions. It's been a beautiful day thus far in Tuscaloosa, so you'll get a chance to see some of that, as well as the player arrival video from just a little bit earlier. So we're going to be covering all of that with you here as the Dogs get ready to take on the Alabama Crimson Tide coming up in just a couple of minutes. Let me get some of your comments, by the way, here on YouTube. We'll do some Facebook comments, and then we'll get ready to go inside the stadium and see what's going on. By the way, don't forget that in addition to the news that we already anticipated, talking about Nick Saban, talking about the schedule change, there's also a lot of anticipation for what Georgia looks like in workouts. And just inside Bryant-Denny Stadium, I'll get a chance to see some of those in just a little bit. We'll be reporting the forum at forum.dognation.com and at dognation.com. Mike Griffith, of course, working the Game Day blog today. The status of Monty Rice. Mike reporting last night at dognation.com that Rice had been seen in a walking boot in Athens this week. I was able to confirm a little bit earlier with some folks that, yes, Rice was indeed seen with one of those a little bit earlier this week, and yet his status, at least in terms of folks outside the stadium with knowledge of the situation, so they're still not quite sure yet what Monty's going to be doing here tonight. But obviously, when you think about important players for the Dogs in a game like this, pretty clearly, Monty Rice would be up near the top of that list. And obviously for him, you know he wants to be able to go and be able to contribute to tonight's game because Rice was not able to play the last time these two teams got together in the 2018 SEC Championship game. And obviously Monty Rice very closely remembers that. So that's some of the stuff that's kind of going on in and around here with an eye towards some injuries, the status of Nick Saban, and of course Georgia now coming to grips with a scheduling change that has it off next week before playing Kentucky in Lexington the week after that. Of course, Crimson Tide fans also piling into the stadium, getting ready for a fun one here later on this evening. Bulldog Trucker, and some of you guys are always really good to help us keep up with scores because when we're running around the stadium, I'm not able to keep up with those as much as I'd like to. Arkansas about to beat Ole Miss, so it's kind of funny when you look at the Georgia schedule of the teams who have been impressive that you may not would have expected, the teams that haven't quite looked as good that you thought might. Certainly right now, Arkansas looks about like the best team that Georgia's played thus far this year. Bulldog Trucker saying they're doing some good stuff there in Fayetteville against Ole Miss here tonight. Beautiful day here in Fayetteville, by the way. Wish all of you could be here with us. Brandon Alvin asking about James Cook. What we know about James Cook is what Kirby Smart has confirmed a little bit earlier, that he felt like Cook could have played last week against Tennessee, was held out for precautionary reasons. That leads me to believe that Cook probably will play tonight. And if I had to guess, I would say that Cook is one of Georgia's running backs used most frequently. It certainly seems like this is the kind of game where his skill set could potentially be really valuable. So Kirby Smart struck a hopeful tone when he spoke about Cook a little earlier this week, and I would say that gives you a chance to think that he will be ready to go and play in tonight's game. Jordy Lawson, is this true? Was the final score 73-7 for Clemson and Georgia Tech? That's unbelievable. What an awful, awful, awful game that was. Cecile Salter Lamb also happy about some of the stuff that Sam Pittman's doing. Yeah, it's certainly been great to see. I've been thrilled about that myself. We'll pop over here on Facebook, get some comments over there as I'm transitioning. Don't forget the other score we're watching right now is with the Atlanta Braves. And the Atlanta Braves, they make their run through the National League Championship Series. Of course, Kroger has been there for them every step of the way on that, just like they're with us here at Dog Nation for our Kroger Kickoff. They're a proud sponsor of Braves playoff baseball as well. So if you're having a playoff party and mixing it up and doing all that kind of fun stuff, hoping the Braves find a way to win against the Dodgers, make the World Series, well, don't forget to stock up on all your game day party needs right there at Kroger. You can go to Kroger.com and find out a whole lot more details about that. All right, over here on the Dog Nation Facebook page for a moment. We'll check in over here. We'll give you a chance to weigh in. Then we'll let you get settled in for Georgia and Alabama kickoff coming up just after 8 p.m. later on this evening. And a lot of folks checking in here on the Kroger Kickoff, getting excited about that. Will Groover says Ole Miss just narrowed it to 26-21. So it sounds like the Rebels trying to stay close there in Fayetteville. We'll keep our eyes on that. Jennifer Stevenson Fleming says the Braves need to step it up. Yeah, I know it was a little bit of a rough first inning for Max Fried, giving up a couple of home runs after what was a rough end of the night last night in Game 5. So the Braves trying to fight and scratch and claw their way into the World Series. Frank DiCarlo Jr. also weighing in on that game, too. 5:30 left in the game, it sounds like, according to Kevin Cook. So we got a good one brewing there in Fayetteville, a stadium the Dogs were in just a couple of weeks ago. Trip Lofton. So let's hope we don't have a lead and then see Bryce Young come into the game. Obviously, Georgia fans have some bad memories of the last couple of games, which backup quarterbacks figured prominently outcome to Tagovailoa in 2017. And, of course, Jalen Hurts coming back in the game in 2018. Bryce Young on the mind of some Georgia fans right there. Yeah, pretty clearly we hope that's not something to think about. Mikey Watkins checking in. Mikey, appreciate you being here and being a part of what we're doing here. Shane Flanagan asking about Trey McKitty. Does he have a breakthrough game? Yeah, when I think about guys that could be pivotally used by Georgia tonight, McKitty's one of the names I think about. First of all, Trey's a veteran presence. Now, I thought Trey was kind of cool when he spoke to reporters a little earlier this week. He was asked directly, is this the biggest game you've played in thus far in your career? And McKitty thought for a moment and then somewhat candidly said, yeah, it probably is. And, obviously he played high school football at IMG Academy, so he's played with a lot of the players that are in a game like this, the caliber of players certainly that's in a game like this. So he's not overwhelmed by the talent advantage or the talent on either side. He's a part of that talent equation, certainly for the Georgia Bulldogs. But in terms of at the college level, McKitty was pretty candid this week to say, yeah, this is about as big as it gets. And obviously when you transfer from a place like Florida State to Georgia, it's a game like this that you want to be a part of. Leonard Young says, my prediction's 35-21, Georgia over Alabama. Boy, I love the thought of that. We appreciate you taking the time to share that. A few more comments rolling in here. Mickey Stokes says, go Dogs, sick 'em. Love to see that. That's fun to see. Let's check back on YouTube here for a moment. We're going to get ready to let y'all get started for the game here. Nitro Z also does want to see Bryce Young play tonight, so clearly there's a lot of memories from Georgia fans on this. Baby Girl says, who do you think is going to win? Baby Girl, I got the Dogs winning this game. I think it's going to take some points to do it. I think it's at least 30 points if Georgia wants to win. I'll take Georgia 31-28. And how about Podlesny kicking the game-winning field goal to get his legacy as a Georgia kicker started? How does that sound to you tonight? Maybe turning Tuscaloosa into Podscaloosa before the night's done with a game-winning field goal. I wouldn't mind seeing that. C. Salter Lamb also says Kendall Milton is a beast, and I know a lot of Georgia fans hoping to see more of Kendall Milton tonight after what Milton was able to do last week, getting a chance to carry the ball against Tennessee. And I would say that's probably a chance that does occur, obviously for Kenny McIntosh as well. Georgia, while it hasn't quite figured out who its featured running back is going to be yet, I would say is feeling pretty, blessed and fortunate to have as much running back depth as it can choose from. And clearly there are a lot of options there for Georgia there in that regard. John Benton says, what's your feel on the game? As I said before, I think the game for me has kind of always been the same, whether it's Nick Saban coaching or not. I think Saban's processes were going to be in place. I've said before, even if Saban wasn't here, to me, if Georgia wins, it would have been a loss for Saban because of the two game plans that are going to be executed solely belong to both coaches. And with that in mind, we've seen this from Alabama as of late. They've scored against virtually everyone. Georgia's got a great defense, but the definition of a great defensive performance against a team like Alabama might just be a little bit different. It seems almost certain that Alabama will get some big plays in tonight's game. And the question for Georgia comes, can it then get some big plays of its own to match? So if you're looking for a Georgia win, I think you need points scored to do that. As I said before, my feel in the game is about 31-28, where every moment is magnified, where every mistake is one to be avoided at all costs. Even in a not full stadium, there won't be 100,000 people here at Bryant-Denny Stadium, the way that so many of us have kind of come to expect over the years. I think the tension will be easily felt. I think for those of you who are watching on TV, you may sense that coming through your screen there as well. And hopefully when it's all said and done, we can gather back here later on tonight on the Dog Nation video channels and be talking about a UGA victory. So this is the scene from Tuscaloosa. Saban is coaching. Georgia's bracing for a little different schedule than it first thought it had going into Tuscaloosa on Friday, but an opportunity for one of the biggest regular season wins that has happened thus far in the Kirby Smart era. So sit back, relax, enjoy the game. Still time for you to head over to Kroger, get stocked up for your own game watching party if you want to do that. Then after the game, I'll be right back here on the Dog Nation video channels, myself, the former Georgia wide receiver Terrence Edwards, for our Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Please check that out. Hopefully, we're talking about what, as I said before, would just be one of the biggest wins that Kirby has collected, at least in the regular season. It's certainly something to look forward to for later on tonight. If you see us here in Tuscaloosa, stop by and say hello. Let me give you one of our Kroger Dog Nation masks. I'd love to be able to do that. Thanks for being here this evening on the Kroger Kickoff. I'll see you after the game. Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Enjoy the game, everybody.